What's up, fam? This is your Professor KARRIEMAH Lotus, and this is BBI Talks. So on this wonderful show, week after week, I invite Black business owners so that we can have a conversation about Black issues that matter to us. And this week, the topic of choice is on the brink of famine. Who will feed Black people? Now, we can't forget, in the midst of the first wave of COVID, this country was under siege by a pandemic. Stores were closed. Farmers couldn't harvest their produce. Ranchers were actually killing their livestock because they couldn't get the livestock to market. Millions of Americans were left with few options to food. Here we are again with what the scientists are claiming is the second wave of COVID that is taking the lives of millions more of citizens here in America. And quarantine is being called by select states already. So now here we are on the verge of a national shutdown. It is definitely looming over us. However, in the midst of this, we have to ask ourselves the question, who is going to feed Black people? I have a wonderful guest by the name of TENISIO, SEANIMA, who is with the Nature's Candy Farms. He is a food justice advocate whose unwavering passion for creating positive change has earned him the reputation as a service-driven leader across Atlanta, Georgia, and beyond. During the past 2 decades, he has cultivated extensive experience in the arenas of sales, leadership, mass media, social activism, and cooperative development. TENISIO recently served as the procurement associate at the Common Market, Georgia. He's also the general manager of Nature's Candy Farms, which is a multi-parcel urban farm in Greater Atlanta, Georgia. His most recent accomplishments are successfully co-facilitating a USDA beginning farmer and rancher development grant program on behalf of Georgia Organics and in partnership with the University of Georgia, and co-authoring the city agriculture plan for the city of East Point, Georgia. Without further ado, I bring up to BBI Talks my big brother, BASU TENISIO SEANIMA. How you doing, brother?
Excellent, excellent.
Fantastic. Can you talk just a little bit louder? Because the people on Instagram who are sending crazy waves and crazy love, thank you so much for joining. They want to be able to hear you too.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, yes, yes. So, Brother TENISIO, before we get started into this interview, I want to go ahead and just, drop that crazy intro. Have you heard the new intro yet?
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it's fire now. My brother Uyaman has hooked the sister up. So here you go.
Okay. We gotta bring businesses back. My business is black. My business is black as the universe. I know why they mad. They gotta react. Cause we're universal influencers. I can supply you the man. Get what I need out the land. The earth is the kingdom of God. Glad that I know where I am. We gotta bring businesses back. My business is black. My business is black as the universe. I know why they mad. They gotta react. Cause we're universal influencers. I can supply you the man. I can supply you the man. Get what I need out the land. Glad that I know where I am.
All right. So what'd you think?
That was awesome. Yeah, congratulations. I need to get whoever did that for you. I need to get their phone number.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, we can hook that up. We can hook that up. That's for sure. So, Brother TENISIO, our topic today on the brink of famine, who will feed Black people? So let's start with who you are as it relates to Nature's Candy Farm and how that even came into being, that business.
Sure. Well, who I am is the great-grandson of Augusta Long, as well as the great-great-grandson of Elbert Long. These two gentlemen were the individuals that we have record of in my family that started farming in 1882. So Albert
Wow.
Long is the father to August Long, and the land that they farmed on is still in the family. It's been there, like I said, since 1882, and it is known as the August Long Estate. So due to that lineage, though I had no idea that I would be getting into this work, during my, trajectory in my professional career, here I am. And I don't think that it's any coincidence. I don't think it's any mistake. I think it's quite apropos that agriculture became my calling, because I have always been an activist and will continue to always be one. And one of the things that stuck with me when having an opportunity to learn from one of my elders was that farming is the greatest form of activism, because you have to feed your friends and your enemy. So you actually have control over the playing field no matter what. It's the great neutralizer, the common denominator. And so I'm feeling like I'm on the greatest pathway towards nation building that one could ever start with.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that. And it's funny because I think how we met, our paths crossed two different occasions. I think the first time was radio, because we were both in radio. You were with WRFG and had a fire show, for those of you who know about the global drum beat. Mm-hmm. I mean, just fantastic. You didn't think I remember, did you?
No, I didn't. Honestly. So you got me over here grinning.
See now? When we shower with compliments, we're not just doing it for lip service, brother. Like it's from the heart, and coming from somebody who comes from radio, that studied radio, loves music, passionate about music, to be able to turn that dial and turn on somebody who has that same love and passion, and it comes across the airwaves is an honor. You know what I mean? It's kind of like how musicians feel about each other when they see them performing at the Grammys, Right. Yeah. And I think the second time my paths crossed was when I was at Truly Living Well. I was doing a lot of volunteer work initially before I started actually working for them, right? And you were with Georgia Organics at that time, or was that before then?
No, I was with Truly Living Well. Yeah.
Okay, you were Truly. Okay, so our paths was kind of sales manager. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So it's important that our viewers know about that, because the founder of Truly Living Well is Baba Rashid, who we had on here a few weeks ago. Okay. So let's talk about, I'm just curious to know, big brother, and you and I have had conversations offline, but I just want to kind of bring to light some of those conversations, into the public. What were your first thoughts when COVID hit and we were all in the midst of a quarantine? What were your thoughts as it relates to our food and food supply and just the overall state of Black people during the COVID quarantine?
Well, I've never been known to bite my tongue, so I'm gonna tell you what I was thinking, and then I'm gonna tell you what I was coached into saying. What I was thinking was, I told y'all so. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I told you so. And, that was obviously not the words that I needed to express. That would be quite arrogant and, just a little bit insensitive. So I was coached into saying, welcome home. And so that's what I felt like. I felt like, all this work that, me and the folks that I know in the farming circle have been doing and advocating for and, lobbying for even, people finally began to take what we were saying a little more seriously than just, oh, that's some little niche hobby that those guys over there have. It's like, no, people were starting to really understand, like, whoa, okay, food provisions for myself is my obligation. That's not the system's obligation. That's not my community's obligation. It's my obligation. And so they could lean on those of us who are making those provisions available to the community. But most importantly, people really began to talk to me about ways they could start growing food for themselves, ways that they could learn to start preserving food. And that was a beautiful thing to see, that level of self-sufficiency finally struck with people. And sometimes it takes, tragedy to do that. But here we are, we're almost a year into this thing, if you will, and those numbers haven't slowed down. I'm still, out here helping people get that awareness and make it become reality.
And let's be a little bit more clear about what it was that you have been advocating for, because I don't know if that point was brought across.
Sure.
What is it that you and others have been advocating for as it relates to urban agriculture in particular?
You know, that the food system that we currently are relying upon is no less broken than many of these systems that we're dealing with. And so, you know, when you live in communities where, you know, again, these are some of the cliche terms, but they've become familiar, you know, food deserts exist, then, you know what a lack of access feels like on a more intimate, regular basis, you know.
Right.
So then when the choir expanded into the congregation, you know, it's like, again, okay, fine, it's COVID today, but it was a lack of a grocery store in close proximity yesterday. It was Miss Johnson having to go get her groceries on the bus versus her car, you know, before that. It was the corner stores being allowed to accept SNAP and EBT because they got a basket of bananas sitting on the counter, but no other fresh food. And yet, you know, beer and liquor and everything else is there in abundance. You know, these were just different ways that we saw the food system was broken. And we as growers always advocated for people to support alternative food systems. And I'll say this too, even that idea of these things being alternative is really more of a Western mindset, because if you go to the Caribbean, if you go to the continent of Africa, I'm sure even in places in Asia, you'll find that the idea of grocery stores is not really as prominent as farmers markets, you know, outdoor farmers markets where there's like, you know, just thousands of square feet of people selling fresh goods, you know, fresh produce, fresh meats, even, you know, like literally the goat hanging right there, you know. These are the kind of things that, you know, we have become less accustomed to in the last century. But now people are starting to pay more attention to the fact that, oh, okay, you know, when the sewage hits the fan, you know, someone's got the ability to clean it up. And that's yourself and your local farmer.
And there's so many points that you brought up that I want to kind of back up to. The more immediate point is the idea of not that overseas, especially in, you know, in Europe, the continent of Africa, the Caribbean islands, even in the Middle East, the concept of grocery stores, they typically build them for foreigners. They don't, but the locals, the indigenous people, they shop every day. And I remember when I had the honor and pleasure of living in Ghana, West Africa, I was shopping for food every day. You know, everything was fresh. Everything just came out, you know, of the ground, probably that morning or the night before. And it was very fresh. And you're right. Somehow, because of our experiences here in America, post-slavery, we got away from that. And we started to kind of buy into this whole big box expression of grocery shopping. Now, there was something else. I remember when your supermarket opened. And I don't know if you remember Minister Rahman, may Allah be pleased. I'm sure you remember Minister Rahman. And I remember one of the things that he said, he was so happy that your supermarket opened, which was a fresh produce. We couldn't use the language organic, and you schooled us on that one, that's a legal term, and I really would love for us to get into that. But when we opened it, he said, you know, that was the one thing he had a difficult time doing when he was building under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was opening a supermarket. There's something about the process of opening even a supermarket in this country and remaining open that is so difficult to do in Black communities. And I just wanted to ask you, why do you think that's so? Because that helps us in a lot of ways, having, when we talk about food deserts, having that easy access to fresh produce. Why is it difficult for us?
You know, I would say that one, you know, the grocery business as a whole is a very high volume, low markup industry. You know, if you are walking into any grocery store in the United States, the smallest section of the store is what? The produce section, right?
Right.
The largest section is all of those processed goods. Well, if you even look at both of them in their itemized fashion, the produce section is comprised of a raw good. So it's already got the lowest margin. And then that lowest margin is at its lowest point with the farmer. So now if you're a farmer and you're trying to determine what marketplaces you want to enter into, you have to really be careful about going into a grocery store if you know you don't have the volume to get the return that you really need due to the low margin that you have set. So that's one point right there that people have to be clear on, is that many Black farmers are not established to just produce volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of food like that for a national, you know, demand and international demand at that. But then let's go to the other side. The value-added processing side is what we call it in the industry, or what you all just call processed foods, or, you know, non-perishable. Right. That's a very expensive endeavor to get into that field. So you got low margin on one side, but you got high input on the other side. So think about it. If you wanted to just can your own vegetables today, you know, you'd have to go out and buy a mason jar. You'd have to get the kit to, you know, sanitize it and things of that nature. And just the physical process is very involved. Could you imagine just doing that as a homesteader for yourself? How much time, energy, and expense that takes? Well, imagine turning that into a business. You know, you're going to need warehouse space. You're going to need logistics. It's a very, I'll say this much, as someone who sells food, this is going to sound kind of weird. I think buying food is one of the most backwards concepts on the planet Earth. I mean, name any other living being that buys food. And there ain't no glitch on my screen. I'm letting that hang, right? There's no living beings that buy food. And your food is your obligation. You can't live on the planet Earth without food. But yet the thing that is most essential, people are struggling for because they're buying it. And it's struggle for me to produce it and get it to you. It's a struggle for the stores to make adequate money off of it unless they've got tens of thousands of square feet like those big box stores have. So I think there's some very just basic things that go along in that. And then, you know, I'll just close with the fact, and, you know, this is a Black business outlet, so I think many of my Black business owners can relate. You know, it's hard sometimes just getting people to trust that the white man's ice ain't always colder, you know.
Say it isn't so, Brother TENISIO.
You know, it is what it is. Like,
colder than ours?
I mean, so I'm not blaming the consumers, you know, I'm just saying that's one of those things that we have to deal with as well, too. You know, but those are three basics, and I'm sure there's some other things that I could gloss over, you know, quickly as well. But, you know, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. Like, how do I scale up? And I think about that all the time. It's like, okay, what's going to be the next stage of development? You know, and there's a lot of things that come with running a farm, which I'll close on the point that farmers have probably one of the most comprehensive, dense set of skills, just because they have to consider so many variables that, again, the value that people place on our work, I think it's really time for people to reevaluate that. We don't denounce the values of doctors and, you know, paramedics, firemen, you know, even the police to a degree, right? We value the commitment that those people have to put into the work, and assuming that, you know, they do it for right reasons. Hey, do your thing. That's what we call a public servant. Why aren't farmers considered public servants? I got to feed all of those people that are considered public servants, but I'm not a public servant. You know, it's time to reevaluate food and farmers and the work we put in.
You know, I agree with you 1,000%. And I was looking at a post not too long ago of I don't know the gentleman's name. Unfortunately, I'm not that much into basketball, but they were talking about how a brother was recently, I guess, drafted into the NBA, and they are offering him a $163 million contract. And I was thinking to myself, you know, to your point, you know, and it's no offense to anybody who plays sports, but it's just to say, if you can pay someone who, you know, plays basketball $163 million, surely we can pay more in someone who provides us one of the essential requirements to sustain life, and that is food. You know, I wanted to ask you about Black farming in particular, okay? Because we're well aware of the money that white farmers are able to make, and we had Professor Reginald on last week. He talked about the Homestead Act and how they were given different tax breaks and land and all that.
Sure,
but as it relates to the plight of Black farmers in particular, what is it that you can look forward to within the context of what's going on right now in the pandemic? You know, what kind of contributions can that Black farmer make now that they maybe couldn't make yesterday?
Sure. Great question. So it goes back to even that point I said about the suite of skills that we have.
Okay.
I think a more appropriate term even for who we are, though we're using the traditional term of farmer, is really a land steward. Because land stewardship means you're doing everything that your respective nation, i.e. your home, right? And then your greater nation, your community, and all the, you know, versions of that as it expands, you are able to extract everything you need directly from the earth, right? So one of the things I think that we as farmers, AKA land stewards, can provide are a greater understanding to our community of what it means to own land. All right. We do oftentimes deal with the surface level because, again, it's the basic thing. We deal with food. We got to eat. Right. But I'm going to just ask the question that will draw out the classic cliche. What are the three things you need to survive?
Food, clothing, shelter.
There you go. Everybody knows that. Now, it's interesting. Notice how you put them in order. Food is always first, right? Because it has to be. What's got to be next? Clothing, right? So we need to understand land stewardship as it pertains to textile production, textile growing, textile processing. There's a reason why if you want to try and become a cotton farmer, it's got very similar licensing as it does to grow hemp. You just can't walk up and buy land and start growing cotton. It does not work like that. That's a very essential skill and a very essential part of agriculture. Then you've got shelter. Well, shelter is typically made from what? Some type of stone or some type of plant, right? Understanding how to mill wood, understanding how to quarry our own rock material, you know, owning mines, owning our own mines, right? Mines and mines, right? You know, being able to say, okay, you know what, instead of us having glass being provided to us by some random company, we're going to own the silica mine. And I'm drawing from real experiences, by the way. None of this is hypothetical. I just left a farmer who mills his own wood. He doesn't go to Home Depot and buy woods. He cuts down trees. He mills it himself. You know, I think you and I have probably even talked about that before.
We sure did.
Another brother. He was the first person that got me into the green movement. He's an entertainment lawyer who eventually got more into like green energy work. He and another partner were able to solicit funding and buy a $50 million silica mine. All right.
Wow.
These are the kind of things
now, what is
that,
silica? Pardon me for my ignorance. What is a silica mine?
Well, silica is the earth material that's used primarily for making glass. Okay. So when people say glass is made from sand, well, there's different types of sands. So the sand that is used to make glass is silica, and silica you can find right in Alabama. And so, you know, just knowing the earth. I even when I bought my current home and started building Nature's Candy, when I was digging into the soil, it was a totally different texture and color. And I live still in metropolitan Atlanta than what it looked like just 15 minutes away. And I called Baba Rashid, matter of fact, and was like, I don't know what the heck this soil is, but I feel like it's not helping me. He was like, well, what did it look like? And then I told him, and he was like, oh, that's this, that, and the fourth. And I got to go back and even look at the notes of what it was. But the point is, at that time, when he told me what it was, he then explained, well, yeah, typically that's a quarry material that they use for like building. So, you know, right now you've got it on the ground, but go certain places in the area and people are actually mining that and they're using it. So I'm saying to myself, oh, wow, I got mineral rights that now I could actually consider at some point, who knows, that I never thought about before. So it's way bigger than food. Land stewardship is about literally controlling the earth realm that you have access to create any and everything you want And I'll just close on this. If anybody ever wants to understand the power of people who hold authoritative positions in agriculture, go look at the website for any state agricultural department. If you're in Georgia, go look at the Georgia Department of Agriculture and look at all the different areas that the Commissioner of Agriculture has authority over. And you're going to see they own the import and export industry, or run the import and export industry. So in Georgia, we have the port of Savannah, all those boats that come in and out of there from all the way over to Africa and Asia, they have to come through the Secretary of Commissioner of Agriculture. Commissioner of Agriculture controls fuels and measures. So they are directly involved in the regulation of the petroleum industry. Petroleum comes from the earth, right? So all my Texas folks, I guarantee you the Commissioner of Agriculture in Texas probably is the main person running oil. I could go on and on, but the point is that's what we have to offer. We have these ancillary sides of this work that anybody can get involved in. If you are an attorney, someone in the sector is going to need your work. If you're an accountant, someone needs you. If you are a seamstress, somebody's going to need you in the textile industry. So don't think that if you're not necessarily a person who digs the soil or plants the food or sells it, that you're not valuable to this work, because you are. And there's so many different sectors of the movement that even you fine tuning what you do down to a sector, it's very possible.
Boy, you just opened up a whole nother world. I remember you were actually the the first urban agricultural specialist who came to Magnolia Crescent Orchards, which is our property, and really helped us in terms of identifying the rich natural resources that we have access to right here on our property. And I'm thinking about how Donald Minister Louis Farrakhan has been telling us for years, buy land, buy land, buy land. But to hear you, and he talked about it in The Time of What Must Be Done, and he talked about the different things that we can extract from the land. But however, our continued study of what is literally under our feet can be the gold mine that we've been waiting for. Could it be the opportunity that we've been waiting for all of this ridiculous wealth that we've been praying for, you know? And it's literally right under our feet. Who would think in a million years that the same material that you were kind of like, what is this that I'm trying to grow into, is the very material that 2 miles away is being mined, and they're making millions of dollars off of it. And many of us, we find ourselves in that kind of situation where we just don't know what's around us. I love having conversations with you because you always have books that you can refer me and others to. And at some point, I would love for you to share, what are some of the books that you have read or that you are reading that helps to refine you mentally so that you can be prepared to do what you need to do to extract from the land? Because I think that's really important. Like, your greatest land stewards are your best researchers, are your best students. And so at some point I would love for you to, I just wanted to kind of take in advance that that's a request of mine.
I've got it sitting right here on the side of me whenever you're ready. Yes, because you know, we really have to study if we're going to make it. I want to just take a brief moment to thank those of you, Burgundy Peacock, Kanetta, Descendant of Allah, Mr. Final Call, I Am Chosen, Descendant of Allah, who else? I want to make sure I get everybody. Eric, Erase Records, Eracism Records. They call me Mr. Crawford, Sincerely Love to God, and others. Let's see, To All Love Black. I want to thank y'all for joining BBI Talks today. I really appreciate y'all joining. Y'all really, you know, came in at a wonderful topic. Every week we hit it hard with different conversations about Black issues with Black-owned business leaders. And so this week we have Brother TENISIO SEANIMA with Nature's Candy Farms. Now I want to talk about the service that you provide.
because a lot of the things that we're talking about, like identifying land, I talked about how you came out and consulted my husband and I on our property. You know, that's a service that you offer. What are some of the other services that you offer under Nature's Candy Farms?
Yep, sure. Well, starting with the origins, I'm a farmer, so I provide food to the community. Anybody interested who lives in the Metro Atlanta area can always visit our website, which is naturescandyfarms.square.site, and purchase actual produce. I am also a concierge, if you will, to a degree. So because as a small farmer, I can't produce everything. If you're still needing certain produce, then I've created a system of being able to aggregate it from different farmers as well as other different establishments. But then next, if you will, on the tier of things that I do, provide, you know, support to those who want to grow for self, whether it be just for personal consumption or even for business. You know, I can literally walk you through the learning curve much quicker due to the successes and mistakes that I've made than having you have to be out there and do it by yourself, you know. So as we say, other people's money, you can also learn from other people's experiences, right? And so that's what I provide as, you know, over a decade of experience to help people do the things that I've already done. And then last but not least, because I feel it's very important, again, to recognize the essence of where all this starts, right? It starts with this temple, this body. So a part of Nature's Candy Farms' provisions is also helping people just stay in shape. We literally have like yoga training and strength training workshops that we put on, because again, stop and think about it. If you need to be able to bend down to scoop that shovel, you don't need to throw your back out. And I'm not saying that that's something that will happen all the time, but I've thrown my back out swinging a pickaxe and I stay in shape. So I know that it can happen. So, you know, that's kind of like our three tiers: is food provision, education, and health and wellness. You know, we are though we're not proselytizing our business as a plant-based business. I am plant-based. I've been vegan since 1999. My wife has been vegan since 2005. She's a plant-based pediatrician. So even our work set couple is all about, you know, just helping our people understand health and wellness. You know, again, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote about that, you know, and it's something that still is relevant. So, you know, let's just keep pressing that message, you know, about how to eat to live, because that's the key to really all of this work. I mean, if you think about it, what else is food for but your health and sustenance? So this is a health business, and we promote all aspects of that.
And I want to mention, I think it was like when the quarantine, you know, it's different levels to it, obviously. But when we were opened up where you could actually have traffic in the streets or what have you, our family actually ordered our food online through your portal, which, by the way, is super duper easy to navigate. And the food looks even better in person than the photographs that are represented on the website. And they're just as tasty. You haven't had really good food unless you've had food that was grown with love. And brother came and he delivered it right to our door. You know, can you imagine? This is a beautiful Black-owned business with clean 15 produce, organic produce that you can order online like you would an Instacart, except you're going to pick the best of the produce, right? And deliver it to our door, not what some Instacart drivers may do. They just trying to get it done, so they don't care what your food look like. You know, I'm not trying to throw shade on Instacart, but I'm just saying sometimes it's not always handled with the love and care for selection, let alone transport, right? But with your service, we never had that as an issue. You know, our food was always top quality. It was beautiful. It was tasty. We felt great after we finished eating. And I'm just sharing this as a testimony of what you have to offer, so that others can go ahead and reach out and start utilizing your service. But then there's something else that you do that I want to make mention of as well, in terms of helping others that may have either large plots of land or smaller tracts of land, with actually planting their produce and building raised beds. If you could speak to that, please.
Yeah, you know, just almost like a scaled up version of what I would do for a home gardener. And things that I'm getting ready to mention are actually, I think, very important to consider with regards to the food distribution side of my business, because stop and ask yourself, like you just said, not to knock any business, but if someone's just doing a job, you know, not only do they really probably not care about how well they're doing the job unless they truly do value, you know, themselves enough to carry themselves that way.
Right.
But do they even have the knowledge on why what they're doing is important? So bringing that back to the point that you're asking about in the question that you've stated. So first of all, I'm a USDA certified organic inspector by training. All right. So I'm not licensed to go and do inspections. It's actually quite opposite. We'll say I played the spook who sat by the door and went and got this information. So for those growers who want to be able to start doing production for commerce, if they wanted to get certified organic, I can help them navigate that process without making the mistakes that could cost them 3 years worth of repair. Because
that's awesome.
If you are going to get certified organic and you have anything in your organic systems plan that's not permissible, you are required a minimum of 3 years to fix that before you can even go back and get certified again. No refund of your money, no refund of your time. And that can definitely discourage someone who's trying to, you know, enter into business. So thanks to Georgia Organics, that's actually where I received that training. And they taught us how to go to a farmer and almost do like mock audits so that we can ensure that everything that the USDA and the inspection process is going to bring up, you've got under control so that you don't get dinged and now lose 3 years worth of production time. That's one skill that I help, you know, people understand, is just how to navigate, you know, the federal government's programs. One other federal government program that's currently, you know, needing to be considered is programs around food safety. So they have both what's called good agricultural practices. These are standards that they are looking for farmers to adhere to in certain marketplaces, but also recently in 2018, the U.S. government signed what's known as the Food Safety Modernization Act. And this was really in response to all of the foodborne illnesses that kept coming up, E. coli, and, you know, just things that clearly somebody needed to address, like, you know, on a higher level. If the businesses can't address it, then this might be a good example of where government played a proper role. So however, this role affects all of us, the big guys who created the produce that was having those diseases in grocery stores, all the way down to the little folks like me. So I can help farmers understand what they need to actually go through in order to make sure that they are in compliance with that act. In fact, we have me and a group of other advocates. We have a food safety course coming up on December 10th. So I'll provide you more details about that as that comes. And so for anybody who's interested from the production side on learning how to make sure that your farm's practices are in compliance with the Food Safety Modernization Act, we'll be doing a 2-day workshop in about 2 more weeks that you can come and attend on Zoom. And that will actually get you a certificate that you can use ad infinitum forever to say that you have been taught proper food safety practices. Within a large scale food production? Any size farm. Any size farm. Awesome. So December 10th, you're going to be hosting a food safety. This is for those of you who are on Instagram that may or may not be able to hear. He's going to be offering a certification program on food safety for food production, no matter if you're large scale or small. So we'll definitely keep you posted as to when that course is going to be made available. So now kind of circling back around to who is going to feed Black people. When you look at the lines, I think it's my nephew posted some footage in Nevada of these long lines for food. People were waiting for food. The same thing taking place in places like Texas. What would be your solution to addressing this, what many scientists and political figures and others are suggesting as us being on the brink of famine? And we know our needs are the last to be addressed, if at all. What would you recommend with the training that you have and the understanding that you have of how we can ensure
that Black people can feed Black people.
Sure. I need to grab a book.
Come on, grab that book, brother.
Let's see here.
We're going to the books now, those of you on Instagram, so that we can get our study on, so we can make sure that we are able to produce what we need.
Yeah, so, you know, again, I want to emphasize that even as a business owner who sells food, even as a farmer who produces food, I'm still an advocate of having the foundation set. You cannot build a home on a weak foundation. So what is the foundation?
Right.
The foundation is wild foraging. You need to know where food exists in nature. We have got we've got to get beyond the necessity of having to buy food because of the luxurious feeling of, I get to just sit down and eat a meal. That's not how most of humanity got to eat just a few short centuries ago. They had to know how to identify food in the wild. So I'm saying, begin to learn it. I'm learning. I am no expert by any means. Would I be able to survive in the woods? Sure. Would it be enjoyable? No. But would I be able to do it? Yes. So learn the foundation of what plants are edible. From there, let's go up to, yes, the food purchasing side of things. I think it's very important to begin to identify where your local farmers are now.
Good point.
Like yesterday, you know, there are definitely some databases that have been floating around on social media. I know because my farm keeps showing up on them and people call me from all over the United States. So I can't tell you a specific one. I would say just literally Google Black farmers, United States, or Black farmers in your state. And some of those lists that people have compiled will come up. Definitely identify any of the social media groups that are centered around Black farmers. I definitely know of one called Grow or Die. You've got one called Black and Indigenous Farmers, Unapologetically Black it's Unapologetically Black and Indigenous Farmers. You've got another one called Black Urban Gardeners for Liberation. You know, there's networks where people are dialoguing, sharing notes, and you can see where they're at and, you know, begin to build. Next, simplify the process of growing food. Don't worry about if you don't have a lot of land. Even if you do have a lot of land, but you haven't started growing, you can easily start with just a bucket, like a 5-gallon paint bucket, or one of those large corrugated metal, like troughs, basically, that they use for like animals. You can go get those at Home Depot for like $20, fill it up with soil and plant. I literally was just doing that before I came to sit down for the interview. As I went, purchased 6 of them, drilled the holes in the bottom of them, went to pick up some compost, filled them up, and after we finished the interview, I'm going to plant in them. And that's 6, you know, beds of food. And you know,
I just want to pause, I just want to pause there for one moment. Number one, the book that Brother TENISIO held up is entitled Forest Plants in the Southeast. I'm sorry, Forest Plants of the Southeast and Their Wildlife Uses. Okay, so that's the book that he held up by, is it James Miller?
That is, yes, James and Carl Miller.
By James and Carl Miller. So that's the name of the book that he just lifted up. Another one is entitled Backyard Medicine, Harvest and Make Your Own Herbal Remedies. And I can't read even though I have these new glasses on, I can't read the name. Okay, Julie Bruton Seal and Matthew Seal. That's the second book that he's holding up, the Backyard Medicine. Now, I love that you mentioned that you can grow food in pots, in containers, excuse me, even buckets that you can get from Home Depot, the you know, plastic, almost look like paint buckets that you can grow food in that. For those who may not live, you know, on properties that have, you know, any access to land, you know, whether it be that you're having to grow food on your balcony, you're suggesting that this is the time to go ahead and start doing that, as well as seeking out local resources. I know there's Habashaw is another grower. We can't forget Truly Living Well, which has a large, I think, how many acres is that? Is that 5 acres?
Yeah, the current data, I believe, is about 4 to 5 acres. Yeah.
Yes, it's about 4 to 5 acres, and it's on the the back gate of Morehouse College. It's not too far from the AUC. So, and they have fresh produce that they sell every Friday. And they also have co-ops, and that's something else too, is co-ops. Can you explain how co-ops work and how that can benefit us as we are seeking resources in our community to feed ourselves?
Oh yeah, most certainly. And real quick, because I would be remiss if I didn't mention, plant some fruit trees, because again, trees are extremely important due to low maintenance, high yield, and long-term yield. You know, you can get 50 years of production out of a tree. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I added that in with regards to, you know, if you don't even live on land that has the ability to plant a tree, find a place, plant a tree, and like just know that that's your tree. You know, it could just literally be in nature, but plant some trees.
Oh wow.
But with regards to cooperative development, you know, another book written by Jessica Niembard, that's Collective Courage, A History of African-American Cooperative Economic Thought and Practice. You know, the idea of cooperatives really is just a, shall we say, formal way of building off of the Isusu model, you know, because again, we understand that collective work and responsibility is important. We understand that cooperative economics is important. And we just are not an individual people. So we need to really begin to, again, understand the value that we have to each other. Like, here's even a difference in just looking at how education works. Traditionally, we're all taught, you go take a test, you get scored on how you performed, and the results of your performance are on you to now deal with. You know, if you did great, you advance in life. If you did poorly, you might get set back, right? A collective mindset would say, okay, Professor Karriemah, you and I are taking the test. You're going to get scored individually. I'm going to get scored individually. And then the instructor is going to ask us all the questions out loud and say, what are the answers? Doesn't matter if you get 5 of the questions right and I get 2. Collectively, if we were asked, let's say 8 questions and we got 7 of them right, as a collective, we knew the answer to 7 out of those 8 questions. You see, we got to get beyond this whole, well, you know, are feeding off of my energy. No, we work together. So this book highlights working examples of that, but also I would suggest even understanding, you know, traditional political institutional systems, because that will also help us be able to, again, figure out how to work together. And when it comes to cooperative development, if you don't understand politics, you're never going to be able to work together. Because if your politics is different than the next person, I don't care how dark your skin is, you know, or how Afrocentric your name is. Your political set, that's where y'all are going to really begin to determine if y'all can work together or not. So if we can find some unified political systems, and Mbongi is just one example, you know, I think then that what we'll find is our ability to do cooperative economics will be enhanced. And I'll close with making sure that, you know, we always, I'll say, kiss the proverbial ring of the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, just due to the fact that they have been the leaders in this movement for so long. So if you're not familiar with them, they are an actual cooperative that helps people who have cooperatives to function. If you want to get started with a cooperative, you can go to them for support. They also have what do they call it? The Land Assistance Fund. So they actually provide land assistance to farmers and helping them understand how to enter into the marketplace, how to navigate government programs, all of that with the intention of helping us to form cooperatives. So it's very important to definitely shout them out. I'd be remiss to not do that. But just definitely learn about the cooperative movement, learn about the 7 tenets, learn about, you know, where it's taking place internationally. In East Point, we're building a cooperative right now called Market 166. Which will be a grocery store in East Point, and same thing.
Okay, so I'm sorry, the grocery store in East Point will be called what?
Market 166. And yes, please slow me down. You know, I'm trying to go through a lot of info.
Yes. Look, and I put in here. Can you hold up that book? Is it in Mbongi? Okay, let me kind of jot that down. The name of the book that brother is holding up is entitled Mbongi. Mbongi or Mbongi? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Mbongi, an African traditional political institution. And that is by Kia Bonseki Fu Kayu, PhD. How did I do with that one?
It's Dr. Fukiao. I'm sure some of your listeners know.
Okay, Dr. Fukiao. Mm-hmm. Dr. Fukiao. Okay, so I'm jotting that down. If you are on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you see me typing into the chat box the titles of these books that he is holding up that we can study that will help us in terms of, well, at least the last two books, to help us in formulating cooperatives wherever we live, and the rich resources that we have at our very hands that we can take advantage of while the time still permits. Just a quick question that this was asked, whether or not this will be recorded. Yes, it is recorded. However, I won't be posting them anymore. I'm only going live. So please, 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 if you want to join us on Wednesdays, it will only be live for this particular podcast. But if you want to get something that is recorded, it's doesn't have the video, but you can find it on Spotify or Anchor, some of the larger podcast services. So I just wanted to answer that question there on Instagram. And those of you who are on Instagram who have questions of Brother Tenisio from Nature's Candy Farm, my guest today, please feel free to go ahead and put in the comment section. He's here as a wonderful, not only brother and friend, but also a resource to us. And so whenever we have the opportunity to ask questions, we should ask them, regardless of how cray-cray we think the question is. Ask it, because it's important that he also know what's going on in the minds of our audience, which helps him, I'm sure, provide even more certification programs, educational programs, and it just really gives him a better feel of what's happening with us right now. You know, Brother Tenisio, you know, gosh, there's just so much to cover in such a short period of time. I definitely have to ask you to come back at a later date and time. But okay, so let's say here I am. I don't have a lot of money, but I desire to get started with growing. Now, I remember, you know, pre-marriage, you know, having the ebb and flow of being an entrepreneur, and hit some bumps in the road. And I learned that you could actually get starter plants using SNAP benefits. I don't know if that's still the case. What other programs can we kind of leverage if we're already in this situation? What are some of the community programs that we can leverage that'll help us kind of get going with growing food, or with building on ideas that we have that are related to the land?
Yeah, excellent question. Well, yes, the program that you mentioned, which is Wholesome Wave, is still available. So for anybody who's interested in being able to get plants, like, you know, a seedling, if you will, of collard greens that you'll then put in the ground, that grows to a full plant. If you go through the Wholesome Wave program, as long as it's available in your region, you can use your SNAP and EBT benefits to buy those, one, and they will double your purchasing power. So it's not that you're just able to buy it, it's that they will literally give you 2 times the amount of whatever it is that you paid for. So if you paid $10 worth of seedlings, they're going to give you $20 worth of seedlings. And they can explain to you more about that program. The executive director is Mr. Will Sellers, who's a good friend of mine. He can definitely walk you through that. You know, as far as programs, gosh, you know, there's so many. You really just have to really look at your region of the country and see where they fall. Definitely the federal government has programs. And, you know, let me be clear, as someone who, you know, again, has been trained in federal government programs, by no means have I drank the Kool-Aid. All right. I'm clear of the role that the government has played in what is, you know, most popularly known as I forget how they say it, It's the greatest plantation on the planet or something. They call the USDA the greatest plantation. I'm butchering the nickname, but that tells you something, right? But at the same time, you know, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And, you know, let's be quite frank. If reparations ain't going to come in a lump sum, let's snatch it however we can get it. So there are programs that the USDA has that actually provide extra bonuses to people of African descent, such as the outreach and advocacy program known as OAO. They've actually changed the name of it. I forget what it's called now, but there's a program known as the 2501 program, 2501. And 2501 program. That's a program within the OAO department of the USDA. And please forgive me for all these acronyms. They have a million of them. That's
okay, so wait.
And
let me be clear. Okay, so under the umbrella of the USDA,
there's 19 offices.
Okay, there are 19 offices that have programs that can assist us as Black people in particular.
Yes.
With securing land. And I think this is speaking to descendant of Allah's question, which is what is the best way to get land for farming and other uses? So there's
not for securing land. This is really for land management.
Okay, this is more so for land management. So under the Department of USDA, the OAO program or the 2501 program.
Yes, correct.
Which is
the office is the Office of Advocacy and Outreach, and the program,
which is the Office of Advocacy and Outreach
program.
And the program that's under that office is the 2501 program. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, awesome. So to speak to sister's question, what is the best way to get land for farming and other uses? What would you say to that question? And thank you for asking your question.
You know, that's a pretty loaded one. You know, I mean, the thing is this, you know, land again is, well, let me start here. The USDA's definition of a farm, let's start right there, is any land that is producing goods for sale that is at least 1/100th of an acre. 1/100th of an acre can be qualified as a farm. So you don't need to have a lot of land to actually access some of their programs. You just have to know what you're doing. Now, with regards to accessing land, I'll say this much, and this is where urban farmers, I think, are really been able to, you know, create inventions through, you know, the as they say, the necessity is the mother of invention. You know, we figured out, hey, look, I can go to a neighbor and just say, hey, can I get like a little $1 lease, you know, to grow in your front yard, or can I use your space to plant this fruit tree, right? My very first garden was at a townhome community, so I didn't have access to land as a townhome owner. I just had literally about a 10 by 10 foot square backyard. But I stopped and said to myself, wow, I got 6 neighbors that have that same size land. Let me see how many of them would have let me just use theirs. We didn't have any fences dividing us. So sure enough, all of them were like, yeah, you can grow in my yard. So we had a farm that literally ran the back of our townhome. You know, I didn't buy it. I didn't do anything but just be neighborly, right? So, you know, I don't want to simplify this too much, but I do want to just say we've got to definitely just be creative. You know, go ask, go talk. And then, yes, if you got the funds, go buy the land. Yeah. I will say this, for the USDA, there is a program through the Office of Rural Development. And the USDA actually does provide, for those who want to take advantage of mortgages, they provide mortgages to actually purchase homes that are going to be used for agricultural purpose. So you can actually purchase the home with the land through some of the USDA programs. Many of those are extremely low interest. I want to say, please don't quote me on this, but I truly want to say that some of those I even think might be like 0% interest for a certain period of time. But don't quote me on that. Just do your due diligence. But don't let land access be the limit. Like I said, go buy, you know, buckets, fill it up with soil, start growing. If you're someone who likes, for example, habanero peppers, you know, A single habanero pepper plant can make like 40 habanero peppers over the course of a season. A single tomato plant can make like 15, 20 tomatoes over the course of a season. An okra plant, forget it. You're just going to be tired of eating okra. You know,
tell the truth.
Yeah, don't let the land thing be the limit. You know, focus on just getting soil into some form of container at minimum. And grow. You can grow mushrooms in the house. I mean, gosh, look right here. I've got a kit. You know,
he's showing a mushroom kit that he has, organic mushroom kit, back to roots. I'm writing that down. Back to roots mushroom, organic mushroom kit.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally the box. You break open this little section right here and then follow the instructions. The next thing you know, you got, you know, oyster mushrooms.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah.
They're making it easier and easier.
That's it. That's it. And yes, I'm saying I can get sophisticated, but I try to simplify things because it's really about us just understanding that necessity, the need, right, is the mother of invention. Don't think that you got to have all the land. It really is not necessary. People are growing in their homes, in tower gardens, you know, aquaponic systems indoors, you name it.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. Another question is, you still weeks have to have fair or good credit? Really, sister, based upon what Brother TENISIO just shared, the credit that you really need to have is street cred. You need to have good relationships with your neighbors, with your community members, because that can go a long way. And to the point that you made in terms of asking your neighbors, hey, can I grow in your backyard? That doesn't require a credit check, you know, to see if your score through Credit Karma was 700 or 800. That type of credit evolves as a result of building relationships and rapport with your community members, you know. I was thinking,
can I throw another book in real quick since you made that point?
Yes, please. Yes.
I mean, the epitome of it being done is this woman and her husband.
So you're holding up a book, because this is also a podcast. You're holding up a book entitled The Courage to Hope.
Yes.
The Courage to Hope by Shirley Sherrod. And why is this book in particular? Why is this book in particular important to you?
Well, because Shirley Sherrod and her husband, Charles Sherrod, actually started the idea of land trusts in the United States. Them along with 12 other land owners. They all came together and started literally the first land trust in the United States. They learned how to do by going to the kibbutz, all right, in Israel. They literally studied how they did the kibbutz and brought that back to the U.S., started a land trust down in Albany, Georgia, that was known as New Communities, that was just shy of 6,000 acres. Those 12 farmers were all folks who were really tied to the Albany movement to some degree, shape, or form. You know, the sit-ins. SNCC was very big in Albany, and Shirley Sherrod and her husband, Charles Sherrod, both were SNCC members. So they took a civil rights approach to land acquisition and purchased a land trust. There's recently been a group of folks in Eastern Metro Atlanta that purchased some land out near Stockbridge. Many of people have heard of. They purchased about 95 acres, right? I'm gonna tell you this much too, to the point about, again, you ain't got to always buy land, but your street cred is important.
Yes.
Watch this. In the city of East Point, right now, we have a mayor that I'm telling you is doing awesome things. And she has literally sat a developer, a grocery store that's trying to open, the Market 166 that I mentioned, farmers, and a farmer's market all together, had them all sit down to talk about a proposal that this developer made to give with a capital G, a 12,000 square foot building to the community, if they could come up with a plan in order to how to use that business, or use that building to support the local food system at East Point. They said they don't even want to start building until that plan has been set up.
Awesome.
That's just having the relationships, you know, knowing all the players at the table. So I know we sometimes are like, oh man, these city council meetings and this, that, and the fourth, you know, what really is going to be able to happen there? A lot more than what's going to happen at the federal level. That's for sure.
Right.
You know, you can go and talk to these people. You can actually approach them with ideas. And as long as your street cred, as you mentioned, is intact, they'll bring you to the table. The mayor put this together, not those individuals. She was like, I know you, I know you, I know you, and I'm bringing all y'all together. And I just happen to be a representative of the farmers, right? 12,000 square foot building that I would have probably never even thought of trying to acquire came purely from just having the relationship.
Awesome. Sister was talking specifically about USDA loans. With USDA loans, there are two types of loans. One is guaranteed, one is not. They tell you that they can accept credit scores that are lower than 620. But to be honest with you, beloved, if you have a credit score that is lower than 620, they are going to take you through the changes to support that application. So if you really want to just kind of fly through their application process, have that 620. But I will tell you this, they have one program that is income-based. And so you can actually go on the USDA Rural Housing Loan. I have intimate knowledge of this particular program. So please give me a moment, TENISIO. You can actually literally go on to the USDA Rural Housing Loan and check out their eligibility requirements. And it goes by your household to number, the number of household to your income ratio, right? And based upon that, it will tell you how much of a house you can qualify for. And then the second part of that, regardless of which program, the guaranteed or the non-guaranteed loan, there's only specific areas that are designated rural that you can qualify for. But let me tell you this. I don't know if you're here in Atlanta or not, and I'm sure it's pretty much the same in other places. There are parts of Atlanta that is designated rural that is literally within a stone's throw of the city. And I'm gonna give you an example. Without having y'all roll up on our property, we're in Chattahoochee Hills, which is a newly relatively newly formed city. It's been in place about 8 years now, right? We are literally 20 minutes from the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. And it's considered to be designated rural, okay? So being in Vegas, you just got to do your homework. I'm sure in Vegas, and it may be areas that you would not even think would be designated rural, right? What is the name of that really affluent community? Is it
Airbnb?
No, in Vegas. Is it Homestead? Sure. Oh goodness, I can't think of the name of that area. It starts with the letter H. Maybe you might know. But I would check there first, because there might be a reason why those homes are so big on that property. Okay. One thing that I've learned, and I'm gonna bring my comment to a close. One thing that I've learned is that really wealthy people don't pay a whole lot of money for things like poor people do. They do the research to figure out where are their breaks, where are their exceptionalities, where are their programs that they can take advantage of that will allow them to maintain as much as their wealth as humanly possible. Okay, so I'm saying all that to say, look up USDA Rural Housing Loan, put in various zip codes that interest you in Vegas, or look on the map, because the map will actually, you can use the scroll mark and it will show you the different areas and territories that are covered and not covered. So I just want to just share that so that sister can prayerfully get on the way to researching that. It's an excellent question. I'm sure others who are listening to the response can go ahead and start doing that research, right? But there's one thing that we don't do that I think during this Thanksgiving holiday, whatever that's supposed to mean, that we should be doing. And this is something that my husband and I talk about often. Find out what relatives are tired of the land that they have that they would be willing to give to you.
Something so
Okay?
simple.
So simple. And that's a conversation over, well, if you eat turkey, you don't. But that's a conversation over turkey and stuffing and dressing, whatever you call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who in South Carolina has land that they don't, you know, that they'll give to you? You know, I have relatives that I've never even met, and my parents were like, hey, if you want land in South Carolina, go talk to Auntie da 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 da. She'll probably give you an acre or two, because you're family.
That's right.
I'm not the only one out here that's like that. That's how your legacy began.
I got my land. Yeah.
That's how you got your land.
I have, of course, on my literal bloodline land that, you know, all of the family members know about. But to your point, when I married my wife, you know, her father, rest in peace, he was trying to get the rest of his family, like his immediate family, his children, his wife, and everyone on board with some land that was in his family. A few of them that were, you know, being talked to were receptive, but he saw how receptive I was. When I tell you, the man literally wrote a business plan and threw a title on me, like, "Oh, you're my vice president," you know.
I love it.
Just through having a relationship, you know, bestowed 100 acres of land to me and my wife, you know. Beautiful. I mean, the thing is, we have to be clear of what they have taken from us. Much of what they've taken from us is not physical possessions. It's the ability for us to cooperate and work together. And I know we all know that, but this is going to help us also, where sometimes we're trying to use their broken system to solve our problems. Going and buying land isn't always necessary. Right. But having relationships with people is always going to be necessary. Start with the basics. It won't be the be all end all for everybody, but I'm willing to bet you, put 10 of us in a room, at least 2 or 3 of them probably have that type of opportunity sitting right in front of them if they just open their mouth and ask. You know, as they say, closed mouths don't get fed.
Absolutely. And in a culture that we've created, and I thank you, Sister Mama Gwen, for joining as well. She said, excellent. My father left land to each of us and our children with the stipulation that it should always stay in our family. And there are a lot of families that that's the case. We just have to ask. I know we might believe, well, I don't have that. That may not be the case. You know, our elders, sometimes they have a zip lip when they're not quite sure what you would do with it or how you would handle it, or you may not have expressed an interest in it. So, you know, some of our elders, they won't mention it if you don't say that's something you want. You know, right. I find that, you know, to be the case. And here's the other thing. They don't have to be blood relatives. You would be surprised at how many people have land. And their only thing is, you know, I'll give you the land just as long as you do something with it. So, look, like I said,
can I make a point on that real quick? I don't mean to cut you.
Absolutely. No, please.
This is the hustler in me now, so I don't know if everybody can handle how I move. You know, I got a certain way of getting it done.
Teach that hustle,
I know a young brother right now who took full advantage of white guilt, and he got himself a fully turnkey farm because this white man was trying to retire out of the farming business, and he called one of our elders in our community and said, "Hey, look, I'm getting out of the business." He said, "I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I want to give first right of refusal of my farm to a black person." He said, "To me, this is my way of giving reparations." And this man literally gave a turnkey farm. I'm talking about with the tractors, with the customers already in place, processing, distribution, everything all in place. Gave it to a young brother because this young brother knew how to carry himself. He knew how to be at the right place at the right time. He knew how to ask for what he wanted. He knew how to evaluate the deal. You know, like I know this farmer ain't just passing some junk off to you, you know?
Right.
So oftentimes, again, it comes from just relationships. The elder knew this guy. This guy knew that the elder knew some young folks, and they made it happen.
Beautiful. Beautiful. To that point, I remember one of the other things that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said was to look around our communities for the abandoned, empty lots or abandoned lots. The same councilmen commissioners, if you put together a plan that says, hey, I want to develop it. In some instances, if you got an absentee landlord, I would just go ahead and just take it and start growing food in it.
Hello.
Let the landlord come and say, I don't want this food here. Okay, well, then I'll move it. But until he
yeah.
But if he or she has abandoned that property, they're obviously not taking care of that property. They have no intention, and it's been like that for 10, 15, 20 years. Clear all those scrap bottles and trash and everything else and start planting in it. But before you can do that, I want to make mention of something that you shared with me, and I want to make sure I say this too. Have that land tested if you're going to grow directly into the ground. Yeah. Right? But that is something that is also an option for us, especially for a lot of the communities that we may find ourselves in, a very blighted communities. The other thing is with the abandoned buildings. My husband just shared with me yesterday that there are, these Caucasian men that are doing vertical gardens, and they're able to produce, hundreds of pounds of food in urban gardens. They're actually, vertical gardens. They're actually taking abandoned buildings from communities and they're repurposing them. So there's tons of things that we can do to help to develop a vehicle by which we can provide food for ourselves. And there was something that you wanted to mention that was in the book there?
Well, I'm going through the actual agricultural plan that I've helped to author, right? This is just a draft version of
East Point City Agricultural Plan.
I am trying to locate it, but we basically put in a section in there where we said, there we go. Recommendation C3, leverage public land, schools, utility easements for growing space. So let me be clear so people can really understand what I'm saying. This is a document that citizens of this city known as East Point wrote, and that we are submitting to the city. We're submitting it to the city.
Yes.
That means it'll be approved by the Planning Commission. It'll be approved by City Council. And then there'll be an ordinance that's actually put in place that will say that there's actually a citizens commission that will oversee the activities that are recommended in this plan. And so we're saying to that city, we see all these blighted plots y'all got, like you ain't getting anything else of benefit out of. Why not create incentives to where growers can use them? Now, mind you, that's the formal way of establishing that. Full transparency, Nathan Candy Farms was actually a guerrilla farm for about 10 years. I had that strip of land that I talked about that was on the townhome yards. But beyond those yards were undeveloped lots that never got finished in that community where the townhome I lived in existed. So for 10 years, I literally guerrilla gardened old plots of land. Now, that's perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal to squat on land. What is required is, like you said, the landowner has to come to you and say, oh, stop doing that. But what I'm telling you is in this subdivision for 10 years, in the full open, a developer never showed up and even stopped that farm from existing. You see? And so then what you're doing is you're going through the process of what they call in the legal terms, adverse possession. All right. So you can acquire land adversely by squatting on it, and you have to openly squat. You can't be trying to hide. Well, this land was immediately behind 6 townhomes. So all those people saw it. And I even cut out a little driveway so that you could just pull right up onto the dirt and pull in there. And had I been able to keep that property for another 10 years before moving, I could have actually gone to the tax assessor and probably worked some angles, and that property would have became mine. Now, mind you, that's the same technique. Part of that technique is how people take our land. All right. So they'll adversely possess our land by creeping up onto it, right? In my case, my family has 3 plots of land. One of them, there hasn't really been any growth on it. And so someone purchased some property right next to that land. And then all of a sudden we started seeing that the county tax assessor's maps of the land all of a sudden was minus 15 acres of our land.
Now,
the only way that we were able to even establish initial proof that that occurred is that we had the USDA's maps. This is why I'm telling you, feel free to call the USDA, forget all the stuff they've done to us. Or let me say, yeah, you can forgive them, but don't forget. And go use them, because they'll keep maps of all your property if you designate your property correctly. And that map that they had still showed the original parcels. So we were able to combat this person who was trying to steal our land because they knew nobody was there. They're like, oh, these black folks ain't going to show up. But we do show up, and caught them. But all that being said, do that to their land. Shoot. Go up into the city and start just setting up shop on the land and see what you can get away with. You know, what do you have to lose?
Sister was, and I thank you for that. That was awesome. Sister was asking what you were reading from the plan. I'll just give you the plan, and I'll ask brother what section he was reading from. But if you go online to the City of East Point Agricultural Plan, City of East Point Agricultural Plan, he was reading from which section, brother?
Gosh, I think it was the local government section.
The local government section is what he was reading from. Okay. Well, brother, I'm sorry.
I was just saying that section is called Priority C.
Priority C. Okay, to be specific. Well, brother, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I am just so grateful that you spent this time with me. I know that you've got to get your hands in that soil and do what you do before you lose any more light. But I thank you, brother, for honoring us with such wonderful information. As always, I appreciate you in what you do and what you're offering to the community. Please, 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 if you are in the Metro Atlanta community, please check out Nature's Candy Farm. Go on to their website. What's your website address, brother?
Nature's Candy Farms.square.site. So that's NaturesCandyFarms.square, SQUARE.site, SITE. And keep speaking, but before you leave, I still got two more that I have to say. Two more books I have to say.
Oh, sure. You got two more books? Okay, well, let me somebody just posted something. Look, Instagram, you got more questions now. Y'all coming out the bag now. Look, okay, so if the property,
I'm in no rush. If you want to stay on, I'm here. You know, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Oh, but look, but my husband's like, but you, my babe,
Brother Muhammad's like, no, sir.
My husband's saying something different. Said,
I submit, brother Muhammad. I submit.
Look, the God has spoken, so I'm gonna wrap this thing up.
Respect to God.
But the question is, one last question, if you don't mind, honey. If the property is abandoned, can they arrest you for trespassing?
You're not trespassing. So again, look up adverse possession.
Adverse possession.
Begin to do your,
I'm sorry, adverse possession. Do your due diligence. Look, don't get arrested and then call BBI Talks and say that you want to bail you out of jail.
Let me be clear. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, I think I should have stated that first. I'm not a lawyer, but I read law books. Okay. So adverse possession.
Yeah. Yes, I have a Black's Law Dictionary too. Those things come in handy. A Black's Law Dictionary. Everybody should have one. I want you, brother, to go ahead and name those last two books. I'm going to put them in the chat box here on Facebook at Prof. KARRIEMAH Lotus. What are the last two books, brother?
Yeah, I'm having to pick because I got a few of them here. But ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that we know about what has been going on in Jackson, Mississippi for the last 40 plus years, 50 years, I want to say, actually. It's imperative to know about Jackson, Mississippi. So I would pick up the book Jackson Rising and learn about what they've been doing with regards to land preservation, revolutionary electoral politics, There's a lot going on there. And it seems like the screen is frozen. Can y'all hear me? Uh-oh, let's see. Can you hear me, Sister KARRIEMAH?
Okay. There's a monsoon of a storm coming through out here, and it knocked all of my internet out. So I want to thank you for your patience. Please, by all means, go ahead and go through these last two books, and then we'll go ahead and close down.
Sure. So, yeah, if you all didn't hear me before, I was recommending that everyone pay very close attention to what's been happening in Jackson, Mississippi, not only for the last, I'd say, 50 years, but definitely since around Hurricane Katrina. This wonderful ancestor of our Chokwe Lumumba has been working to really create, as it says, economic democracy and Black self-determination through what's known as the Jackson Kush Plan. It's hard to really put it all into words, but what I'll just say is revolutionary tactics and electoral politics have figured out a way to actually marry themselves together in the United States, something that none of us ever thought would ever happen. And so what you're seeing now happen is that on a municipal level, you've got staunch revolutionaries taking over and being able to create the existence that we all have been dreaming for. So when Chokwe Lumumba was elected mayor, mind you, that's off of the heels of him being Afeni Shakur's attorney, Tupac Shakur's attorney, Fulani Suli attorney. He worked on a case relative to atrocities that were happening as a result of Hurricane Katrina and that attack on our community. And that man became the mayor of a city. Then when he passed away, one short year later, his son, Chokwe Antar Lumumba, became mayor with 91% of the vote in favor of him. Wow. We're talking about over 100,000 people. So,
oh goodness, Brother TENISIO, my concern is that we won't get through to the end. I gotta ask you to come back, Brother TENISIO. I know they want you to come back too. I just want to be able to close out before the storm knocks everything off again. But I thank you for being on the show. This is BBI Talks on the brink of famine. How will Black people feed ourselves? And we have answered that question 10 times over today. I pray that you enjoyed it. I thank you so much for joining us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So without further ado, we're going to bid everyone a wonderful and blessed and safe weekend.
We gotta bring businesses back. My business is black. My business is black as the universe. I know why they mad. They gotta react, cause we're universal influencers. I can supply you the man. Get what I need out the land. The earth is the kingdom of God. Glad that I know where I am. We gotta bring businesses back. My business is black. My business is black as the universe. I know why they mad. They gotta react, cause we're universal influencers. I can supply you the man. I can supply you the man. Get what I need out the land. Glad that I know where I am.